Good afternoon, class. I thought I'd give a brief video about MLA documentation as it relates to directly quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Um, we will probably discuss these sort of concepts a little bit more throughout the next couple of weeks as well. I can provide additional handouts and video visuals that will be helpful when you start rough drafting and finalizing your paper. So I'm hoping as you're reading, your 6 sources, your 2 scholarly internet sources, your 2 scholarly websites and books, that you are taking notes and highlighting the information that you might want to directly quote from, paraphrase, or summarize from, because that's the whole point of the research paper, right? Quote unquote research. You need to include those 6 sources throughout your paper. So basically what you would need to do is, since you have at least 6 scholarly sources, you need to at least quote from each one of those sources, I would say 1 to 2 times. So you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 12 in text or parenthetical citations throughout your 6 to 8 pages, and directly referencing them in your works cited page. And if you've been doing the citation portion of your annotated bib correctly, you should already have the correct citation above your paragraph. And I can show you as it gets closer to actually turning in the research paper how you can possibly use those citations to create a really quick and easy works cited page. So we're going to jump over and look at some of this documentation information dealing with the MLA 9th edition handbook. You do have that particular handbook in your little menu. If you go down, it says MLA handbook. You can kind of look at that. It's fairly lengthy. It's about 500 pages. You don't need to read all 500 pages, obviously. There is a table of contents there that you can kind of look up how to quote, how to summarize, how to paraphrase, how to use signal phrases, that type of stuff, because students sometimes get confused that they're thinking that their annotated bib, they're just going to combine all those annotated bibs and that's your research paper. No, the annotated bib, set 1, set 2, set 3, is you showing me that you went out and collected your research. You answer those 4 questions per 6 source, that I see that you have really well sources that you can use in your paper. So you're going to write a research paper based on your topic that you chose back when you did the proposal a week or so before spring break, that you're going to use these 6 sources. So kind of keep in mind that your last annotated bib is due today by 11:59 as well. So make sure that you get those in. Some of y'all are losing points on the annotated bib because you're not following the instructions. I talked about it in a video lecture before, a week or so before spring break, how to set these annotated bibs up. I gave you some information from a previous student that's made a 90 or higher on all 6. Some of y'all not following the format, so you're losing points in the format, losing points in that you're not answering all 4 of the questions. Some of y'all are giving me more sources than I really need. Like I said, it's 2, 2, and 2. I mean, obviously you can do more if you want, but then that's going to sort of become a unbalanced. If you did 2 for the first set, did 3 for the second, and now for the third, what are you going to do? 2 more? You just need to have 2, 2, and 2 for the annotated bibs. Now you can have additional sources for your 6 to 8 page research paper that you don't have to do an annotated bib on. Just be mindful that your research paper, if you do have more sources, let's say you have 10 sources, your research paper probably needs to be more to the 8 to 10 page range. So be careful about using more sources. I'm going to flip over here real quick. I'm kind of impressed with time too, because I got a class I got to teach here in about 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to go through this as much as possible. I will send this particular link out again as we get closer to drafting, which really after today, you should start drafting, a rough draft of your 6 to 8 page research paper. Because by this point, starting Tuesday, you should have all 6 sources. You can go ahead and start drafting a page a day or whatever the case may be. We will try to do a peer review as it gets closer. Maybe if not the end of this week, possibly the middle or so next week, to give you enough time to sort of digest the peer review, get your comments, get your suggestions from your peers. Also use possibly tutor.com when it comes to drafting, and you can start sending me drafts at various times when you get them. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to share this with you momentarily. And as you can tell here, this is the 9th edition of the MLA handbook. I do have a OER of this in your menu. And we can see that here momentarily. I'll pop it back up if time allows. But basically, what is MLA? Well, MLA is Modern Language Association. Provides a universal set of guidelines for citing sources across all format types. MLA style refers to a system of citing resources, and the 9th edition was basically published in April of 2021. So they like to publish new editions every so often. APA does too. Kind of keep in mind, some of y'all might be trying to, you're writing in APA style. In this particular course, you want to use MLA, which is what we've used since week 1. So make sure that you're looking at my comments that I'm leaving on your essays and such, because some of y'all might be losing really easy points that you can gain just by following the correct format. So why should you cite? Well, citing identifies sources used in a research paper or project. It gives credit to those researchers, authors, and writers whose words or ideas you borrow, acknowledging their role in shaping your research. It allows others to follow up on or retrieve this material, and you also want to avoid charges of plagiarism. Remember, there's information about plagiarism in your actual syllabus. You should have read that during the first week. We talked a little bit briefly about plagiarism throughout the semester. Generally, the first offense for this particular course and at the college is you would get a 0 on that assignment. If you do it more than once, you will fail the class. Obviously, it's a 2-strike policy and you're out. You will fail the course if you do it twice, and you will have to go before a board of directors here at the college, vice president, president, me, a couple other folks. And they're going to determine whether you are suspended for a couple semesters, a couple years, or just barred from this college for life. It stays on your transcript, whether you do it 1 time or 2. It's not worth it. So when in doubt, cite or get help learning where and when you should cite, because nobody can afford a 0 at this point in the semester. This is a big chunk of your grade with the research paper. And really nobody can afford being kicked out for X amount of weeks, months, years, or for good from a college if you're wanting to try to get a degree and further not only your career, but education as well. So what is plagiarism? You've probably heard of this. If you had K through 12th grade, high school, public or private, you should have heard this at some point. You might have heard it maybe at another college if you had some college classes. It is the acknowledged or under acknowledged use of appropriation of another's work, words, or ideas. A form of cheating or stealing, and it is a serious academic offense. A lot of folks have lost their job because of plagiarizing stuff maybe in the past, and it's sort of coming back to light. Think of presidential candidates. You've heard folks there, other people in magazine, book, and newspaper industry. When you borrow words or ideas from sources to support your argument or research, you must give proper credit. By crediting your sources, you avoid plagiarism. If you do not cite a source intentionally or unintentionally, you are guilty of plagiarism. And that's basically how the college views it too. Whether you meant to do it or didn't do it, doesn't matter. You did it. The first offense, again, is a 0. So please don't do it. The other thing is, don't go out to these research paper sites and buy a paper. We will know that you bought a paper somehow. We've caught students that done that in the past. We've caught students using papers from other universities or from other students that had taken these similar classes, whether with us or other colleges. We have a plagiarism program built in called Safe Design. It will pretty much, if you can find it anywhere, in the internet or on the internet or in the world, we can find it too. And be careful of using AI programs. Um, AI is a tool that you can kind of use to help get ideas, get your outline going, get stuff, sort of moving, but you don't want AI to actually write the paper for you. Because I have busted folks over the years using AI. I busted somebody in your class, this particular class this semester using it. So that's another, situation. Once you get busted one time, you don't really have much choice. I mean, it's going to drop your grade about 20 points, which is 2 letter grades. And depending on where your grade was at that time, your A becomes a C, your B becomes a D, your C is already an F. And it's going to be hard to work past that at certain points. Citation. Why should you cite? Many students plagiarize unintentionally. Remember, when you summarize, paraphrase, or quote another author's material, you must properly cite or give credit to that source. If you are using another person's idea, you must also cite your source. So even when you're paraphrasing or summarizing, generally with a paraphrase, is that you're using your own words to basically capture the idea of that particular author or source. Again, you're not necessarily using direct quotations, but you're still using the idea from the original source. You're just remixing it or rewording it in your own language. You still need to have a citation, what they call parenthetical or in-text citation at the end of that particular sentence. Same thing with summary. You're doing the same thing. You're not using a direct quotation, but you're still using somebody else's idea that you're just sort of rephrasing. Be careful. You want to find synonyms, obviously, or antonyms, but don't go through and basically use the source to change every single thing around in a particular passage or quotation that you're trying to summarize or paraphrase. It looks kind of goofy. It's very obvious, but at the same point, you don't want to just change a couple words and then leave a couple of the original words, because again, that's what they call patchwork plagiarism, where you only change a couple words and then you leave a good string of the original. So be very careful of not doing that, because you will get caught when you turn it into the safe assign, because it's very good about flagging that stuff. I usually catch, 1 or 2 people in each one of my classes, and I usually teach about 5 or 6 classes each semester who plagiarize a paper, where they copy and paste, whether they bought a paper, whether they borrowed a paper, whether they use AI. They think they're going to get away with it, and they usually don't. How do you cite? There are 2 parts to citing according to MLA. You have brief in-text citations, often in parentheses, within the body of your essay or paper, and then you have a list of full citations in your works cited page at the end of your paper. Note, source cited in your text, i.e. the paper, must appear in the works cited page. Conversely, each entry in the works cited page must be cited in the text of your essay. So if you have 6 sources, which is why I had y'all do the annotated bids the last 3 weeks to go out and get you those 3 or 6 sources, I should at least see 6 sources on the works cited page that correspond with the quotations, summaries, and paraphrasing that you are doing intextually throughout that 6 to 8 page paper. So there should be a reference point there, meaning you don't want to have a works cited page that has 30 sources and you're only using 6. Well, where's the other 24 coming from? Why do you attach 24 if you only use 6? That's a big red flag to me and a lot of other folks when it comes to plagiarism, is that you attach a lot of sources at the end that you never use. So when I say 6 sources, I really mean just 6 sources, and don't mix them up, meaning if you have 6 sources for your annotated bib, that was the whole point also, use those 6 sources. Don't go out and find 6 additional sources in the next 2 weeks. That's just going to be, double work to yourself. Use the 6 sources. If you need, additional source 7 or 8, that's fine. But as long as you just keep in mind, if you use quotations, summarizing, or paraphrasing of 8 sources in your particular essay, we need to have a works cited page that shows 8 sources on it. In-text citation. Parenthetical citation. When citing sources in the text of the body of your paper, include 1, the author's last name, and 2, the page number. For example, Wessler 201. Notice there's no comma, there's no kind of punctuation, there's just a space between the author's last name and the page number. You don't have to abbreviate the word P for page or PP for pages. It's just author's last name and the actual number. And generally, because they don't do it here, you will see it in this example, the period's going to follow outside, as it says here. It says place the parenthetical reference at the end of the sentence before the punctuation mark. So in this case, this person was either, paraphrasing or summarizing this particular source. That's why you don't see any quotation marks at the beginning or end. But because they paraphrased or summarized the source, they still have to give credit to this particular author, which they do at the end. So when we get to the works cited page, if I wanted to learn more what's on page 201 of Wessler's source, I would look up the entry for Wessler and go from there. When the author's name appears as part of the sentence known as a signal phrase, do not use it again in the parenthetical citation, just give the page number. So as it is shown here, this again is another summary or paraphrase. Wessler argues, and it goes on, but notice at the end we have the parentheses, and in this case it's just the page number. It's redundant to use the author's name twice, which is the reason why we do that. This is what they consider a signal phrase. You can go to Google and type in MLA 9 signal phrases. That would be probably beneficial to you to use. You want to make sure that your signal phrases or your signal verbs, because basically that's what they are present tense. You're going to write this research paper basically in what they call historical or literary present tense. When there are 2 authors, name both authors every time that your work is referenced in your paper. So as you show here, this person uses the 2 authors as leading into, they're using the signal phrase of the 2 authors, and they have the page number at the end. Here, they don't mention the 2 authors at first. They have them at the end with your actual parenthetical citation. What I would suggest is that you sort of interchange using both of these methods, so you're not using the same method over and over again and getting kind of dull with it. MLA would rather that you do more paraphrasing than direct quoting if possible. So I would try to, do the paraphrasing, which is basically what this particular writer in this example is showcasing, paraphrasing or summary. And it's because, as you can tell, there's no direct quotations. We don't have any open or closed quotation marks here. Other citation possibilities: 3 or more authors. When there are 3 or more authors, use the first author's last name and at all, ETAL period, for all the others. For example, as you can tell, syllabus here, there's more than 3 authors, so that's why you can abbreviate it ETAL. Again, at the very end, we have the last name or the page number inside the parenthesis with the period. Here we have the reverse of that, where we just have the last name inside the parentheses, again, ETAL, because there's more than 3 authors. And notice too how now it's period, comma. It's because of the way this is abbreviated. That's why you need to write it this way. Or other citation possibilities: organizations as author or unknown author. If the author is a group, that is corporation, association, government agency, use the entire name in the in-text citation. So for example, here they're using the National Institute of Mental Health. And again, this is telling me pages 22 to 23. When a work has no identified author, cite the first few words of the title with quotation marks around it. For example, IKEA report. Notice there's quotation marks around that. And then again, the page number 115. So yeah, usually you will see this with websites that may not have an author, or it could be a company website. So if you do have like a company website, you want to mention the company's name. Generally, websites don't have page numbers, so a lot of times you won't have the page number aspect. Sometimes you just have the only thing you would know is the article, the name of the article, and if it's very lengthy, again, you want to sort of shorten that down to about 1, 2, maybe 3 words, but put it in quotation marks. Other citation possibilities: 2 or more sources and direct quotations. So when referring to more than one source in your in-text citation, place them alphabetically, separated by a semicolon. So as you can tell here, again, in our parentheses, we got this particular source that is being paraphrased. And then we have Freud, 191, semicolon, Jung, 95, and again, the period at the end. When directly quoting a specific part of the source, enclosed within double quotation marks, that means open and closed quotation marks. Punctuation marks such as periods, commas, and semicolons should appear after the parenthetical citation. So as you can tell here, in a letter to Freud, Francia wrote, comma, we get into our quotation. It's less than 3 lines, because we'll talk a little bit about that. If you quote more than 3 lines, basically 4 lines or more, you're going to have to do what they call block. And here we have this particular citation with the particular author's last name. It comes from a source that has multiple authors to it. And then again, we have the page number at the end. It says here, ebooks and other web sources may not include page numbers, in which case chapter numbers or other location elements can be provided. So again, if you have chapters in an ebook or a website, you want to use the chapters, or you may have to count your own paragraphs and put PAR 4 for paragraph 4, like PAR period 4 or PARS period 5 through 8. That's basically telling us paragraphs 5 through 8, which is what they do here. It says treat electronic sources the same as printed sources. Direct quotations from e-sources which don't have page numbers are referenced by paragraph or heading and paragraph number if available. So they show that here in this case, right? PAR is abbreviation for paragraph, period 4. And the same thing here. This is giving more or less like a section header that it's coming from this particular source. Again, has more than 3 authors. It's coming from the section results, and it's coming from results within the first 3 paragraphs of that particular section. The long block quote or long quotations, they usually call them blocks. If your direct quotation is 40 words or more, it is considered to be a long quote. Generally, if you're quoting 4+ lines, it's going to be a block quote. And it says, it is considered to be a long quote and must be written as a freestanding block. This means each line of your quotation must be indented 0.5 inches from the left margin without the use of quotation marks. So if you look here, this is how it usually goes. We're introduced with a particular insight into the quote. Generally, when you introduce a block, there's going to be a colon at the end, and then we get into our block quotation here, which if you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going on 4.5 lines. You indent basically each one of these lines. There's no quotations at the beginning or the end. The punctuation comes before the in-text citation, but as you notice here, we still need the author's last name, and in this case, the page number. They're also using a year. You don't necessarily have to use a year in this case, but here they did that because of the different texts. As it relates to the works cited page, you do have works cited generators that you should be using, especially with the annotated bibs. So what I'm going to do is sort of hold off on that because this is sort of doing it old school way. And there's really no sense of doing it old school way unless you're just doing it for a cross reference, because you do have generators that will help you. So with that in mind, I'm going to sort of end this particular discussion with the MLA documentation. We will do additional, information on summaries, paraphrasing, and direct quoting. I'll give you a little bit more, handouts and that type of stuff. I will probably send you this particular form if you want this slideshow. But until then, I hope you have a good rest of your week. Please email me if you have any questions. If you have any drafts that I can go ahead and start looking at to make sure that you are quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing correctly, so you can avoid getting, the zero for the plagiarism, or, just getting a bad grade, period. Just let me know where I can help. Remember, I sent out some information about some extra credit deals over the last couple weeks. I hope that some of y'all are taking advantage of that. Some of y'all would benefit from it. If you've already done it recently, I've probably already applied those points to a particular grade, like I said I was going to do, either SA4 or SA3. So please do those, because at some point we're not going to have enough time to do extra credit, because our semester basically is going to be ending relatively within the next 3 weeks. So we don't have that much longer. We really only have, honestly, you only have 2 assignments left. You have the last annotated bib. You have the actual research paper, the final draft. There might be one in there. We're going to try to do a peer review if possible. But because y'all did the respondus deal for the midterm, you don't really have a final exam. So the research paper is sort of the last thing that you're going to have to do in this course. And I believe it's going to be due, and I have to go back and double check the assignment checklist, but I believe it's going to be due on Sunday, the 28th of April. So you got a little bit of time, but you don't have a whole heck of a lot of time. So I would definitely start, after you submit that final annotated bib, to start really drafting and getting this paper ready. So you're not waiting till the last minute. All right, I got to go to another class. I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. And I will be in touch. Please email me if you need any help. Have a good day.